So here is what we've learned in this module. We covered a lot of topics that relate to financial planning, right? So we started with basic forecasting of financial statements to allow us to figure out whether a company will need long-term financing or not, right? So we were thinking about PepsiCo, whether PepsiCo would need to raise additional financing to support an expansion plan, right? So they had a large capital expenditure, and the question that we answered is, do they have to raise external financing or not, right? So we learned how to use financial forecasting to do that. We talked about the importance of cash and the cash flow statement and all of those issues, okay? Then we talked about short-term financial planning, right? So what we learned, the general idea is that working capital management is an extremely important source of cash generation and cash demands for companies, right? So receivables, payables, and inventory are issues that the companies need to think about on a daily basis, okay? So extremely important for cash generation, okay? And we learned how to calculate and analyze these working capital ratios that allow you to think about, whether a real-world company generates cash quickly, like Walmart, or whether a company has to wait very long to generate cash from working capital investments. And the companies that have to wait long are those for which short-term financial planning is most important, right? So companies like PSI really have to work really hard on their short-term financial planning to make sure that they don't hit liquidity problems, okay? And we did talk about how to manage these short-term cash needs, both in terms of inventory, in terms of receivables, and in terms of accounts payable, right? So we covered 3 specific examples that are not exhaustive, but I think illustrate the issues very well, right? The first example, we talked about inventory management when sales growth rates are very high, okay? Then we talked about seasonality and how that generates a need for short-term cash management. And finally, we talked about the notion of liquidity risk and how to manage liquidity risk using accounts payable, okay? So I hope now we learned a lot about the financial planning. Our next topic in the next module is to think about whether investments should be made or not, okay? Including short-term and long-term financial short-term investments like capital expenditures. Okay, so that's where we're going next.